Hello, everyone. Tonight we are diving into a story that might just hit closer to home than you expect. Picture this. It's quiet now. Maybe you're curled up in bed or sitting in your favorite chair. But what if the people you trusted most, the ones you poured your soul into, turned on you? What if your love, your sacrifices were seen as a weakness? You probably won't survive that level of betrayal unchanged. I know I didn't. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And hey, drop your city and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. My name's Margaret Pierce, but most folks around here just know me as Maggie. I'm 58, and if I've learned anything in my near 6 decades walking this earth, it's that sometimes love can be the cruelest teacher. See, I thought I knew what sacrifice meant. I thought I understood what it meant to give your life for your child, but nothing prepared me for the gut punch reality that child might grow up and see you as nothing more than an obstacle. For 30 years, my entire existence orbited around my son, Ryan. I gave up everything for him. Late nights working doubles, early mornings making sure he never went without. Paid for his education, his medical bills, his clothes. Even gave up my own marriage just so Ryan could have a shot at a better life. But life's got this nasty little habit of smacking you in the face just when you least expect it. It was a Wednesday afternoon, one of those gray, heavy sky days. I had just gotten back home at, well, their home. Ryan and his wife Brittany's place. I walked in suitcase still in my hand, heart full of nerves, ready to explain the news. I wasn't working for Ms. Carter anymore. She was my employer, the woman I'd cared for these past several years. I hadn't even gotten to the part about why when Ryan's face turned hard. His eyes darkened, his jaw tightened. Why would you suddenly quit? His voice was sharp, slicing right through my little bubble of hope. That job was $8,000 a month. What, you planning to just sit around freeloading now? Freeloading, that word. It was like a slap. Like everything I had done, the years of sacrifice, the love, the hours worked, meant nothing now. I could have snapped right then, but I didn't. Part of me thought, maybe he's stressed. Brittany's family always looked down on him on me. Her mother, Linda, teaches at the university. Her father's some hotshot at City Hall. To them, Brittany marrying Ryan was like charity work. Brittany picked up their attitude like it was part of her wedding vows. Always snide little comments about his salary, my background, us being beneath them. But I thought once they found out, once they knew about the inheritance, it'd all change. Ms. Carter, bless her heart, she left me $8 million. Not because I begged, not because I schemed, because she respected me, because I earned it. I hadn't told them yet, though. Guess I wanted to see their true colors first. So I smiled, pushed down the hurt, and tried to shift the conversation. Didn't you say Brittany's planning to get pregnant soon? I thought I'd come back early, help out, support her during the pregnancy, maybe even help with the baby after. Brittany's face ice cold. She actually scoffed. Postpartum recovery requires professional care, she said, like I was dirt beneath her designer shoes. You used to be... What a housekeeper. What would you know about that? Before I could respond, Linda chimed in, voice dripping with fake sweetness. Taking care of a newborn isn't diapers and bottles, Maggie. It's a science. You need training. This isn't amateur hour. They had it rehearsed, like a Broadway show of condescension. I could practically hear the applause in their heads. I gave a tight, bitter smile. I knew that script by heart. They still saw me as the maid, the help, the woman who didn't belong. Fine, I said, keeping my voice even. If you've got it covered, I won't step on any toes. Linda rolled her eyes, smug as ever. Of course, you'll still cover the nanny and nurse, though. I'll handle the hiring. Her words hit me like a gut punch. My mouth went dry. But Ryan! He jumped right in, all eager. Exactly, Mom. You shouldn't have quit that job. We've got expenses piling up. You should keep working. And that's when the fog lifted, when it all clicked. They didn't want me home to rest. They wanted my paycheck. I wasn't a mother to them. I was an ATM. I squared my shoulders, looked him dead in the eye. I'm 58. I think it's time I retired. Brittany let out this sharp, bitter laugh. Retired? You don't even have a pension, Maggie. What are you retiring from? Her words hit harder than I expected. I wanted a retirement fund, but I spent every penny on them. Paid off their mortgage, bought their groceries, covered their bills. Now it was thrown back in my face like I was a fool. Brittany sneered. Your income was pathetic anyway. You should have planned better. Ryan, my son, raised his voice then. Enough. You're stressing her out. Brittany's trying to get pregnant. We need money more than ever. You're still in good shape. You can work another 20 years. 20 years. The words, they hollowed me out. After everything, every sleepless night, every dollar earned, I was still just a source of income. But I saw it now. The lies, the manipulation, the sugar-coated promises of, we'll take care of you someday, just words to keep me on the hamster wheel. I steadied my voice, firm, unshakable. I'm retiring, that's final. Linda's face, it shifted, a crack of fear beneath the smugness. She backpedaled, voice softening. Look, Maggie, be realistic. There's no room for you here. But there's a solution. My gut twisted. There's a wealthy family looking for a live-in assistant. Great pay, room and board. You've done that before. Brittany chimed in, all fake excitement. Perfect idea. You could help us financially. Win-win, right? My face hardened. I quit. I'm not going back to work in anyone's house. Linda's smile vanished. Her eyes cold now, sharp. Well, there's a senior residence nearby. You could work there. Kitchen help, janitorial. At least you'd be pulling your weight. Brittany nodded. Way more reasonable. Stop expecting us to carry you. Rage simmered, but I stayed calm, looked at Ryan. My son. You really think sending your own mother to scrub floors in a nursing home is acceptable? He avoided my eyes, but kept the act up. Be realistic, Mom. You've always said you wanted independence. Isn't this dignified? Then, right in front of me, he dialed the number. The final cut. The boy I sacrificed everything for, eager to shove me out the door. But what they didn't know was they'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I stood there watching Ryan's thumb hover over the dial button. His eyes were sharp, his face unreadable, like I wasn't his mother anymore, just some inconvenient mess he was trying to clean up. And you know what? For the first time in a long, long time, I didn't flinch. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask him to stop. Instead, I picked up my suitcase, the one I'd brought home, thinking it meant I'm here to help. I straightened my shoulders, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, calm as a quiet storm, if this is who you've become, Ryan, then I guess I never really knew you. Brittany snorted under her breath. Drama queen, she muttered. But I ignored her. I ignored them all. I walked to the door, every step steadier than the last. Just as I reached for the handle, Linda's voice shot out like a whip. You're his mother, Maggie. You're supposed to be responsible for his future. You can't just walk away like this. I leveled my gaze at her. Responsible. I've been responsible for Ryan for 30 years. I've sacrificed my marriage, my health, my future, just to give him a life. What exactly do you expect me to bleed next? My dignity. Brittany jumped in arms, crossed, her eyes narrowed. You raised him, and now you want to wash your hands of it. That's unbelievably selfish. I almost laughed right then. The audacity, the absolute nerve of these people. They had twisted reality so tight they actually believed their nonsense. You know, I said coolly, for a college professor in a government bigwig family, you sure missed a few basic life lessons. Like, a parent's legal obligation ends when their child turns 18. Me, I went above and beyond. But there's a limit, sweetheart, even for love. Ryan's face darkened, his voice rising with frustration. That's not parenting. That's you trying to pay off your guilt. Every miserable thing in my life is because of you. You owe me for life. It wasn't even the words that broke me. It was the venom. The pure, bone-deep resentment in his voice. And then he said it. Did you ask for my permission when you decided to bring me into this world? The room went still. My hand froze on the door. I turned slowly, studied him like I was seeing him for the first time, and realized maybe I was. You really want to go there, Ryan? I said quietly, my voice cold enough to frost the windows. Maybe you should ask your birth mother about that. His brow furrowed confusion flashing across his face. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I didn't wait for him to catch up. I grabbed my suitcase, stepped out the door, and left them standing there, their mouths hanging open like fish, gasping for air. I barely made it to the elevator before the shouts started. "You're disowning your own son. You're not even human." Don't get too proud, Maggie. When you're old, sick, and desperate, let's see how far that independence gets you. No one's hiring a washed-up woman your age. You'll come crawling back, mark my words. I didn't turn around, not once. I pressed the elevator button, head held high, eyes forward. You see, they thought I had nothing. But what they didn't know was I had everything. The house they lived in, bought with my blood, sweat, and tears. The deed legally theirs. Sure. But $8 million sitting in a trust fund, that was mine. All mine. They couldn't touch it, couldn't twist it, couldn't steal it. I rode that elevator down each floor a step further from the person they tried to break. By the time I hit the lobby, I wasn't the same woman who walked in there that morning. I called a cab, booked a room at the most expensive hotel downtown, and checked in without blinking an eye. A few hours later, I was sitting in the penthouse, sweet glass of wine in hand, city lights sprawling below me, and my phone pressed to my ear. "Mr. Daniels." I greeted the lawyer on the other end. "It's time. Let's get the ball rolling." For the next week, I toured every high-end neighborhood in town. Luxury villas, gated communities, marble floors, grand staircases, sun-drenched patios. But nothing felt right. Not yet. That is, until I walked into the Ridge at Cedar Heights. The place was pure, unapologetic elegance. Winding driveways, private security fountains glittering under the sun. It practically whispered, "You've made it." I stepped into the sales office, ready to browse. And fate. Well, she had a sense of humor. Because standing there, clipboard in hand, her polished smile faltering the second she saw me, was Chloe, Linda's niece, Brittany's cousin. We'd crossed paths before at family functions. I remembered her, all glossy hair, expensive heels, and the kind of arrogance that dripped off her like perfume. Her eyes scanned me head to toe, the recognition flickering across her face like a faulty light bulb. "Maggie!" "Pierce?" She sneered, voice sharp enough to slice glass. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, slow and steady, looking to buy. Chloe's jaw twitched, barely contained amusement bubbling beneath her words. "You buy here." "Honey, this isn't open house weekend for the help." The room quieted, heads turned, eyes followed. I kept my smile calm and dangerous. "I'm not here for snacks, Chloe. I'm here to buy. Now, you gonna show me around or should I call your manager?" Her smirk faltered. People whispered. A few chuckled under their breath. And for the first time, I saw the scales tip in my favor. I wasn't their maid anymore. I wasn't the fool, the burden, the discarded. I was the woman with 8 million reasons to rewrite the rules. The look on Chloe's face, God, I'll never forget it. That split second when her smug little smirk faltered when her brain couldn't quite catch up to what her eyes were seeing. Me, standing there. Not in a maid uniform, not with my head down, but with the kind of quiet, lethal confidence only money can buy. She hesitated, then tried to salvage her pride with that same syrupy, condescending voice. "Of course, Mrs. Pierce, right this way." I followed her through the showroom, her heels clicking nervously against the polished marble. The place was extravagant. Vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the skyline like a painting. But I wasn't distracted by the luxury. I was watching her. The way her posture stiffened, the slight tremble in her hand when she flipped through the brochure. She was rattled, and she should be. Because people like Chloe, they spend their whole lives clinging to the illusion that they're better, richer, smarter, above people like me. What they can't stomach is when the tables turn. We stopped in front of a scale model of the villas. Tiny, perfect versions of the mansions sprawled out across the gated community. Chloe cleared her throat, voice wobbling just slightly. These start at $3.5 million. Fully customized interiors, private gardens, state-of-the-art security. I pretended to study the model, tapping my chin thoughtfully. Nice. She forced a smile. Of course, we do require proof of purchasing ability before proceeding with any serious offers. Translation. Show me your bank account made. I didn't miss a beat. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, and held it up to her face. Her eyes darted to the screen, and the color drained from her cheeks faster than you could say $8 million. The showroom buzzed. Other clients noticed. Whispers floated through the air like static. 8 million, someone muttered. She's got 8 million. I held the screen steady, my gaze never leaving hers. Will that do? Chloe's mouth opened, closed, opened again. She looked like a fish gasping for air. Before she could stammer another insult, a young man in a crisp navy suit approached. Mid-30s, confident, too polished to be a junior staffer. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Alex, the sales manager here. Is there a problem? Chloe recovered fast plastering on a fake grin. No problem at all. Mrs. Pierce was just browsing. Alex's sharp eyes flicked between us, sensing the tension. He smiled politely at me. Mrs. Pierce, would you like me to personally assist you with a tour? I nodded once, slipping my phone back into my bag. That would be lovely. Chloe faded into the background, shrinking smaller with every step I took toward the future she thought I'd never touch. Alex led me through the model home. It was breathtaking. Soaring ceilings, imported stone countertops, a sunroom that looked out over rolling hills. Every inch whispered quiet wealth. And you know what? I didn't feel out of place. Not for a second. I belonged here. Maybe more than anyone else in that building. By the time we circled back to the sales office, I'd made my decision. I'll take it, I told Alex, my voice steady. In cash. The showroom froze. Even Alex faltered. Pardon? You heard me. I pulled out my checkbook. I'd like to purchase this villa. Today. Full amount, no mortgage, no financing. The room buzzed with hushed shock. Alex scrambled to process the paperwork, his hands moving fast, eager to close the sale. And Chloe, she hovered in the background, pale and trembling, her eyes flickering with panic. But I wasn't done yet. See, people like Chloe, they need reminders. As I signed the final page, I turned to Alex, smiling sweet as sugar. Oh, and one more thing. I'd like that young woman at the front desk, Sophie was it, to get the commission for this sale. Alex blinked, confused. Sophie? But she's still in training. I insist, I interrupted, my voice firm. She treated me with respect when no one else did. She deserves the reward. Alex nodded quickly. Of course. Absolutely. I could feel Chloe's glare burning into my back, but I didn't look at her. I didn't have to. The papers were signed. The house was mine. The message, loud and clear. You underestimated the wrong woman. I left the showroom that day with the keys to my new home and the quiet satisfaction of knowing karma was finally clocking in. That night, I celebrated. 5-star dinner. Fresh flowers filling the villa. The kind of peace I hadn't tasted in decades. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet, because people like Linda, like Brittany, like Ryan, they don't give up. They don't just disappear. They circle, waiting, watching, biding their time. And I'd seen enough snakes in my life to know when one's about to strike. But this time, I was ready. More ready than they could ever imagine. I didn't even get a week of peace. That's how fast they came crawling back the moment they caught wind of my little real estate purchase. The vultures started circling. It started with a phone call. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, I answered, already bracing myself. Maggie. Linda's voice smooth as ever, but with an edge of fake sweetness that made my skin crawl. I heard a little rumor. You bought a house. In Cedar Heights, no less. I didn't say a word, just let the silence hang there. She kept going. You know, you really should have consulted us before making such a big financial move. After all, it affects the family. I almost choked on my coffee. The family? You mean the family that kicked me out, that called me useless, that tried to ship me off to scrub floors in a nursing home? Linda laughed lightly like I was being dramatic. Oh, Maggie, don't be so sensitive. We were just concerned about your future. My future, I repeated flatly. Funny. You didn't care about my future when you were trying to shove me out the door. There was a pause on her end. just long enough for me to picture the wheels turning in her conniving little mind. "Listen," she started, tone softening. "We might have overreacted. Things got heated. But we're family. And family forgives." I snorted. "Family also schemes, manipulates, and bleeds you dry, apparently." Linda cleared her throat, ignoring the jab. "Ryan's been a little stressed. You know how men are with the pressure of providing, and Brittany, well, she can be sharp-tongued, but her heart's in the right place." I almost laughed. Her heart's buried somewhere under the mountain of designer bags I paid for. Another pause. Then quietly, carefully, she dropped the real reason for the call. "We just want to understand where all this money came from, Maggie. It's a lot. People talk. They speculate." There it was, the greed bubbling up beneath the fake concern. I leaned back in my chair, staring out at the view from my new living room. Sunlight poured across the hardwood floors, the distant hum of sprinklers whispering through the open window. "You want to know where the money came from?" I asked, voice like ice. "It came from years of backbreaking work, from loyalty, from sacrifice, from a woman who respected me enough to leave me everything when she passed." Linda scoffed, her mask cracking. "Oh, please, don't act like this is some rags-to-riches fairy tale. You, a housekeeper, suddenly rolling in millions sounds shady to me." I smiled. "Jealousy's an ugly color on you, Linda." Before she could spit more venom, I hung up. But that wasn't the end of it. Over the next few days, the messages poured in. Brittany's passive-aggressive texts, Ryan's pathetic voicemails shifting from fake concern to guilt trips to outright rage. And then the flowers. A massive bouquet delivered right to my door, red roses, a glossy card tucked inside. "Wishing you a lovely weekend. Love your son." I nearly burst out laughing. The gall of it, the sheer shameless nerve. Without hesitation, I picked up the bouquet, walked it straight to the trash can, shoved it in, and snapped a photo. I sent that picture to the front gate concierge with strict instructions: refuse any deliveries from this person. Forward him this photo. I didn't just want him rejected, I wanted him humiliated. For a few blissful days, silence. Then the real circus began. Ryan started showing up, lurking outside the gated community. Rain or shine, weekday or weekend, there he was, hovering near the entrance, sometimes pacing, sometimes slumped on a bench like a kicked puppy. The first few times, I ignored him, but he escalated. One morning, as I was leaving for brunch, he lunged toward the car, face contorted with desperation. "Mom, please," he begged, banging on the window. "Don't be like this. Come home. I was wrong. I'll change." I didn't even look at him, just rolled up the window and told my driver to keep going. It was pitiful, embarrassing, but it wasn't sincere. Not for a second. Ryan didn't miss me. He missed my money. 2 weeks of this, and I finally got sick of the drama. Hired a full-time driver, stopped walking anywhere alone, avoided the front entrance entirely. Eventually, the act wore thin. Ryan disappeared. For a moment, I thought, maybe, just maybe, it was finally over. I was wrong. Because snakes don't disappear. They just slither into darker holes. A week later, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first, but the voice on the other end sent a chill straight through me. "Hey, Maggie," the man drawled. "It's Richard, my ex-husband. The man I hadn't spoken to in over 20 years. What? How did you get this number?" I stammered, caught off guard. "Relax," he chuckled. "Ryan found me. Guess he's been doing some digging. Showed up at my office, making a scene." My stomach twisted. Richard continued, voice heavy with irritation. "Kid demanded a paternity test. Said I was lying. Insisted I was still his real dad." I rubbed my temple, dread settling in my chest. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him the truth," Richard said simply. "That I'm not his biological father. But I didn't tell him everything. That was always our deal." I exhaled, tension releasing slightly. "Thank you." "No problem," Richard replied. "But brace yourself, Maggie. He's unhinged, desperate. If he's willing to track me down after all these years, he's not going to let this go." He was right. Ryan wasn't coming to terms with anything. He wasn't processing the truth. He was planning his next move. And I needed to be ready. because I could feel it. The storm was far from over. I wish I could tell you Richard's warning was enough to prepare me for what came next, but the truth is, I still underestimated how low Ryan would sink. See, I thought he'd stew for a while, process the truth, maybe even finally grow up. But Ryan, he wasn't interested in growing up. He wanted revenge. And like a child who can't have his toy, he decided if he couldn't control me, he'd destroy me. It started small, subtle. A neighbor's odd glances, whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by, forced smiles that didn't quite reach the eyes. At first I thought maybe it was just the usual neighborhood politics. Rich folks always have something to gossip about. But then Monica called me. You remember Monica, the sweet young sales associate from the Villa showroom? She was the only one who treated me with genuine kindness when I bought my house. She sounded nervous, hesitant. Margaret, hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Please don't let what people are saying upset you. I frowned. What people, Monica? What's going on? That's when the other shoe dropped. Apparently, I'd become famous, but not in the good way. Ryan had gone public. He started a live stream channel on one of those big social media platforms. Called it, How My Mother Abandoned Me. Clever, right? I clicked on the link Monica sent me, and there he was. Sitting in some dingy little room, eyes puffy, voice trembling like he was starring in a soap opera. My mother never really loved me, he sniffled to the camera. I worked so hard, studied so hard, and she wouldn't even support me. When I got into college, she left. Took some job as a live-in assistant for rich strangers, leaving me to live alone in a crummy apartment. I stared at the screen in disbelief as he poured out one manipulative lie after another. When I got married, she didn't contribute a dime. Now that she's rich, she cut me off completely, like I never existed. The comments poured in. Thousands of strangers eating it up like candy. What kind of mother does that? She sounds heartless. He deserves better. It made my stomach churn. But it wasn't just the lies that got under my skin. It was the genius of it. Ryan didn't come right out and accuse me of anything illegal or scandalous. No. He crafted the perfect sob story. Painted himself as the abandoned, struggling son, the heartbroken victim, and me, the cold, ruthless villain. It was infuriating and effective. His follower count skyrocketed. His streams blew up. Pity donations poured in. He even started selling merchandise cheap t-shirts with slogans like, "All I wanted was her love." It was so absurd it almost felt like a bad dream. But this wasn't a nightmare I could wake up from. It got worse. People started digging. My name, my address, photos of my house. My entire life was being dissected by internet strangers with too much time and too little sense. Suddenly, I wasn't just some private citizen enjoying her hard-earned retirement. I was the villain in Ryan's viral sob story. And it was working. I considered calling my lawyer immediately. But I didn't. Not yet. Because deep down I knew fighting fire with lawyers was one thing. But sometimes you gotta fight fire with gasoline. So, I made a plan. That same night, I registered my own account on the same streaming platform. Created a channel. Titled it, So This Is the Mom Who Abandoned Ryan. Simple, sharp, impossible to ignore. First, I dropped into his live stream, sent a hefty donation, $5,000, just enough to make the chat explode. Then I sent a message across the screen. Hi everyone, I'm the heartless mother Ryan's been crying about. Want to hear my side? Come to my channel. Tonight I'm giving away $100,000 in cash prizes. First come, first served. The flood of viewers was immediate. My channel's traffic exploded. Within minutes, thousands poured in hungry for the tea. I smiled to myself. Showtime. I leaned into the camera, my voice steady, my eyes unflinching. First of all, oopsies. I cut off financial ties with Ryan, but no, that doesn't make me heartless. People deserve the full story. I laid it all out. The years of sacrifice. The job I took across the country to pay off their mortgage. The house I bought for them. The constant disrespect. The insults. The eviction from my own home. And finally, the inheritance. I intended to leave every penny to Ryan and his wife, I explained. But instead of gratitude, they schemed to throw me out. suggested I go play live-in servant for some wealthy old man, because to them, I wasn't a mother. I was a wallet. The comments section blew up. What? They tried to get her to be a housemaid? That's financial abuse, not family. But I wasn't done. I shared the notarized trust documents, legal proof of my $8 million inheritance, scanned receipts of medical bills, tuition, every dime I'd ever spent on Ryan's life. Some folks still doubted. But he's your son. Aren't you supposed to support him? I smiled coldly. Support your child, yes. Enable them to bleed you dry forever. No. Especially when that child, Bas, isn't even yours by blood. The chat exploded. A wall of question marks filled the screen. I leaned in, calm, ruthless. Ryan isn't my biological son, I revealed. I adopted him when he was 1. Found him abandoned at a hospital. Born with a heart defect. Left to die. The comments went nuclear. She saved him. He's adopted and doing this. She gave him everything. But the final nail came next. I uploaded the audio recording from the elderly man's household, the call where Ryan arranged to ship me off as some old man's personal live-in assistant. It was undeniable. The chat turned, his sob story shredded. This isn't abandonment, it's survival. He doesn't miss his mom. He misses her money. She's the victim, not him. I sat back satisfied. But I knew this was just round 1. The real fight, that was still to come. I thought I was prepared for the fallout, but nothing quite prepares you for the internet turning on your own flesh and blood. The next morning, Ryan's streaming account gone, completely wiped off the platform. His merchandise site shut down. The pity donations frozen. Turns out, when you expose the truth with cold, hard evidence, public sympathy flips faster than a light switch. But you know what they say about cornered animals? They bite. And Ryan, he didn't just bite. He came clawing and snarling like a rabid dog. First, he showed up outside my gated community again. But this time there were no fake tears, no dramatics, no pathetic, trembling pleas, just rage. Pure, unfiltered, dangerous rage. I spotted him from the upstairs window, pacing like a caged lion, fists clenched, jaw tight, eyes wild. And for the first time, I felt it. Not guilt, not sadness, not even anger. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. I called security, locked every door and window, and doubled my household staff's hours. For 2 days, he stalked the front gate, shouting, pacing, threatening to expose me to the neighbors. But the guards did their job, kept him out, until he found another way in. Not physically, but digitally. See, I'd underestimated how vindictive Ryan could get. While I was basking in my little victory, he was scheming. And this time, he went for the jugular. That night, my phone lit up with dozens of missed calls and texts from old friends, acquaintances, even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. The messages were frantic, panicked, some flat-out angry. Margaret, is this true? You scammed your own kid? I can't believe you. I logged on to Facebook, my heart pounding. There it was. Ryan had created an entire website. Photoshopped evidence. Fake bank statements, screenshots of old emails twisted out of context, a slick, manipulative sob story built from half-truths and outright lies. But the most gut-punching part, he'd somehow tracked down my ex-husband, Richard, and dragged him into the mess. On the website, there was a video, a shaky, poorly lit clip of Richard looking exhausted and irritated, clearly filmed without his full consent. Ryan's voice off camera feeding him leading questions. So, you're saying my mom manipulated you too? Would you say she tricked you into abandoning me? Did she lie to you about her money? Richard trying to wave him off, muttering, "Kid, I don't know what your mother's told you. Just leave me out of it." But Ryan edited the video, cutting it to make it seem like Richard confirmed every disgusting accusation. The site, it went viral within hours. Suddenly, I wasn't just a heartless mother, I was the villain of some twisted domestic scandal. Tabloids started sniffing around. Random strangers sent hate mail to my house. My garden gate got vandalized with spray paint, greedy old witch. It was surreal. How quickly the world can turn on you when a well-crafted lie spreads faster than the truth. I called my lawyer immediately. We need to sue, I snapped. Defamation, harassment, everything. But my lawyer, he was calm, calculated. Maggie, we absolutely can, he agreed. But you know how these things play out. Lawsuits take time. Meanwhile, your reputation burns. I clenched my fists, teeth grinding. Then what do you suggest? He hesitated, then offered a slow, dangerous smile. You've already beaten him once publicly. You want to end this? Hit him where it hurts, not with courts, with the one thing he values more than anything else. I already knew the answer. His ego and his wallet. That night, I stayed up late. I rewatched every one of Ryan's live streams I could find, dug through his old posts, his friends lists, his pity party fan base. I learned his game inside and out, and then I beat him at it. See, what Ryan never realized is you don't survive as a working-class single mother for 3 decades without learning how to play dirty when necessary. The next morning, I launched my own website, clean, professional, full of notarized documents, legal statements, bank records, adoption certificates. Proof. Real undeniable proof. And then I dropped the final bomb. An unedited audio recording from Richard himself. Turns out, after that manipulated video surfaced, Richard wasn't happy. We met for coffee. Old history, old bitterness aside, even he agreed Ryan had crossed a line. He recorded a formal statement, clear, concise, impossible to twist. I was never Ryan's biological father, he stated. Maggie never lied to me. We made that choice together. And Ryan's current behavior, that's on him. The recording went live. And with it, my reputation flipped back like a coin. The hate, it turned to sympathy. The vandalism stopped overnight. The media lost interest the moment the real facts hit the internet. Ryan, he panicked. He deleted the website, went radio silent. But the damage was done. To him, not me. My lawyer filed the defamation lawsuit the very next day. And as for me, I didn't celebrate. I didn't pop champagne or throw a party. I simply exhaled. Because finally, I was free. Or so I thought. But the thing about people like Ryan, they don't crawl away quietly. They come back. And this time, he wasn't coming alone. I should have known better. Really, I should have. The moment I let myself believe it was over, the quiet days, the blooming garden, the neighbors finally smiling at me again, that was when the next storm rolled in. Because snakes, they always shed their skin and come back meaner. It started with a knock at the door. Not the front gate, the actual front door of my villa, which was strange because security never let unapproved visitors through unless they were on the list. I cracked the door open cautiously, and there she was. Brittany, Ryan's wife, my sweet, scheming daughter-in-law, hair done to perfection, makeup flawless designer purse dangling off her arm like a trophy. I hadn't seen her in months, not since the day they kicked me out like garbage. Her smile was fake, but her eyes calculating, cold. Hi, Maggie, she greeted like we were old friends catching up over coffee. I didn't invite her in. Did security forget how to do their job? I asked flatly. She let out a light, airy laugh. Oh, come on. Don't be like that. I'm family. I raised an eyebrow. I'm sure that's what the guards thought, too. So, what do you want? Brittany shifted her purse, her smile tightening just a fraction. I think we need to talk. I disagree. Maggie, her voice dropped, losing the fake warmth. This thing with Ryan, it's gotten out of hand. You've made your point. You've embarrassed him. You've crushed him. Isn't that enough? I crossed my arms, leaning against the door frame. You're acting like I started this. Brittany's mask slipped for a second, just a flicker of annoyance, but she caught herself smoothing her expression. Look, I know things got complicated, but airing family drama publicly, you've humiliated him. He can't even show his face around here anymore. I snorted. He humiliated himself, Brittany. I just showed people the truth. Her jaw clenched. Regardless, it's affecting me too. My reputation, my job, my family. There it was. The real reason for the visit. It wasn't about Ryan. Not really. It was about her cushy lifestyle, her spotless image. I shook my head, already done with the conversation. That's not my problem. But before I could close the door, she wedged her hand into the frame, her voice turning sharp. If you don't back off, you'll regret it. I tilted my head, amused now. Is that a threat? No, she snapped. It's a promise. I paused, staring at her, and for the first time, I saw it. Desperation. Not the kind that comes from love or loyalty. The kind that comes from watching your entire, carefully constructed life crack. I smiled. Brittany, I've survived worse than you. And if you think you can scare me into silence, you're even dumber than I thought. With that, I slammed the door in her face. And yet, my heart was pounding because I could tell. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Anonymous phone calls in the middle of the night. Blocked numbers. Silence on the other end. Then a soft chuckle. Then the line going dead. Strange cars parked down the street. Lights flickering in my yard after dark. Packages showing up with no sender name, empty boxes, shredded newspaper even once. A dead rat. It was textbook intimidation. And I knew exactly who was behind it. But they weren't smart enough to cover their tracks. Security footage, license plates, delivery records. I handed everything to my lawyer and the police. But the harassment kept coming. Until one evening, I got a call from Monica, her voice shaking. Margaret, are you okay? I frowned. Of course. Why? You haven't seen the video yet. My stomach twisted. What video? She hesitated. You better sit down. A minute later, I found it. A new account. Anonymous, but the voice unmistakable. Ryan. The video title, The Truth About My Mother, What She's Hiding. I clicked play. There he was, eyes bloodshot, his voice trembling, but this time, the act was gone. This wasn't a sob story for pity. It was rage. You all think she's some victim, he hissed. You think she's innocent? She's not. She's a fraud, a liar, and I'll prove it. Then, he did the one thing I didn't expect. He showed my adoption papers, twisted them, spun them into a disgusting narrative. She never loved me, he sneered. She picked me up like a charity case, used me for sympathy, for handouts, everything I had. She held it over my head. And when she got rich, she cut me off. Because I wasn't her real child. The comments section was already exploding. How could she do that to an adopted kid? She probably only took him in for tax breaks. Disgusting. Using a child for pity. I clenched my fists, my pulse roaring in my ears. The lies were poison, and they were spreading fast. But what Ryan didn't realize, he wasn't the only one with receipts. I picked up my phone, called my lawyer, my voice calm, controlled. It's time I said simply, release everything. The real adoption records, the medical bills, the receipts, the notarized statements from social services confirming I adopted Ryan at my own expense with no compensation, no tax breaks, no charity funding. The documentation showing I worked 3 jobs to pay for his surgeries. The evidence proving beyond any doubt that I gave him everything. It all went live. And then I released the final blow. A video of my own. But this time, I wasn't just defending myself. I was telling the whole story. Unfiltered, brutal, honest. From the moment I found him abandoned, frail, clinging to life, to the sacrifices, to the betrayal, to the lies. I laid it all bare. And this time, the internet saw. Really saw. The truth. The real villain. And just like that, the tide turned again. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't victory. This was war, and I was just getting started. The war wasn't clean. It wasn't quick. It wasn't satisfying. It was exhausting. You see, people love drama. They eat it up. They scroll and comment and judge, but they forget. Behind every viral video, every headline, there's a real human being who still has to wake up the next day, shoulders heavy, heart battered, wondering how much lower this mess can drag you. For weeks, my life was split in two. By day, I tried to live normally. Coffee in the sunroom, gardening, quiet lunches by the lake, little moments that reminded me I had built a new life, that I didn't owe anyone an explanation for my peace. But by night, it was a battlefield. Ryan's little army of internet sympathizers kept resurfacing. Private messages, hate comments, phone calls from blocked numbers. I ignored them at first. Blocked, deleted, reported. But they kept coming. And it wasn't just strangers. Old neighbors, distant relatives. Even women from the piano showroom, the ones who used to look down on me, whisper about my maid background. They all had an opinion now. One afternoon at the cafe, I overheard two of them at the next table. She should have been grateful, one of them hissed. Raising someone else's kid? What did she expect? Now she's got money, she thinks she's untouchable. I stirred my coffee slowly, not even turning around. Let them talk. Their small minds couldn't touch me. But inside, it still stung. It always stings when you realize, even with money, even with proof, some people will always believe the version of you that fits their narrative. And then came the final rotting cherry on top. A letter, mailed straight to my villa. No sender's name, but the handwriting. Unmistakable. Ryan's. Inside, a copy of legal documents. He was suing me. For emotional damages. For exploitation. For abandonment. I nearly laughed. The audacity of it, but it wasn't funny. Because the court doesn't care about gossip, about feelings. The court cares about paperwork, about appearances. And Ryan, for all his failures, knew how to put on a performance. I called my lawyer, slid the documents across the desk. He read them. His face darkened. "It's weak," he muttered, "but it's enough to drag you through hell for months." I sighed, rubbing my temples. "Can we fight it?" "Of course," he said, "but it'll be public. Ugly. You sure you want that?" I stared at him. I thought about my villa, my garden, the sunlight that had finally started to feel warm again. Then I thought about Ryan. The years, the sacrifice, the betrayal. "Yeah," I whispered, "I'm sure." And so, it began. Depositions, statements, court dates. Ryan paraded in with his smug little smirk, his lawyer glued to his side, Brittany trailing behind like some tragic housewife in a soap opera. He told the judge I used him, manipulated him, that I only adopted him for sympathy, that I abandoned him the moment I didn't need him anymore. I sat there silent, letting him spin his lies. And when it was my turn, I told the truth, calm, collected, brutal. I showed the receipts, the medical bills, the adoption records, the trust documents, the audio recordings, every ugly detail laid bare. The courtroom buzzed with quiet shock. Even Brittany's eyes started to shift, darting to Ryan with flickers of doubt. The judge unimpressed with Ryan's theatrics. It dragged on for weeks, but in the end, the truth won. The judge dismissed the case, citing frivolous and malicious intent. Ryan's face turned white. His lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. But I wasn't finished. My countersuit for defamation and harassment, that one stuck. Ryan was ordered to pay damages. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a victory. Small, quiet, but mine. After the hearing, as I walked out of the courthouse, I expected him to follow, to hurl insults, to plead, to beg. But instead, I found Brittany, waiting by my car, arms crossed, face unreadable. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then finally, she spoke. "I'm leaving him." I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." Her voice wobbled, but she kept her chin high. "I stayed because I thought he was just broken, lost. But after today, after all the lies, I see it now. He's rotten, and I won't drown with him." I didn't say anything, just watched her. For the first time, she looked real, tired, defeated, but real. She took a shaky breath. "I'm filing for divorce. I just thought you should know." I nodded once. "Good for you." And with that, she turned, heels clicking against the concrete, walking away from the wreckage she helped build. The divorce finalized quietly. Ryan spiraled. But me, I rebuilt. Brick by brick, day by day. The noise faded. The drama dimmed. For the first time in, I couldn't even count how many years, I could breathe. And I promised myself I would never let anyone, family blood or otherwise, use me as a stepping stone again. But deep down, I knew, with Ryan, it wasn't truly over. Not yet. It wasn't the end. Not with Ryan. It never is with people like him. The thing about narcissists is they don't just vanish when they lose. They regroup, they rebrand, they crawl back with a different mask. For a while, I actually believed maybe the storm had passed. Months went by. Quiet ones, peaceful ones. My garden flourished. I started taking art classes. I even hosted a little dinner party at the villa, just a few new friends from the neighborhood, glasses of wine under the patio lights. We laughed. We shared stories. And for once, I didn't feel like the outsider, the charity case, the unwanted burden. I was just Margaret, the woman who made it. But Ryan, he was a shadow that never really disappeared. It was Monica who tipped me off again. She called one afternoon, her voice tight. You might want to see this," she said, sending me a link. My stomach turned as I clicked. There he was, my son. New country, new identity, same poison. Canada. Apparently, Ryan had packed up his broken pride, grabbed what little money he had left, and vanished north. Now he was online again, different platform, same manipulative game. Only this time he was rebranding himself as some kind of motivational speaker. From abandoned son to self-made survivor, his page read. The irony made my teeth ache. I scrolled through his videos. Him in some run-down apartment, barely furnished. Dark circles under his eyes. His voice was softer now, calculated, tragic. He wasn't spewing rage this time. No, he was playing the redemption arc, telling sob stories of abandonment, twisting the narrative, leaving out the lawsuits, the court losses, the truths I exposed. And the worst part, it was working. People were donating, following, believing him. I closed the laptop with a sigh. It should have made me furious, but all I felt was hollow. I didn't even have the energy to fight anymore. Because the truth, his lies didn't touch me here. Not in my villa, not with my bank account intact, not with my life finally my own. Let him chase internet sympathy in another country. Let him stew in the consequences of his own choices. I was done. Or at least, I tried to be. A week later, the letter came. Thick envelope, Canadian postage. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Ryan. I debated tossing it in the trash. But curiosity, it's a stubborn thing. I opened it. Inside a single-page letter, the words scrawled, uneven, messy. Mom, it started. I know you hate me. I've made mistakes, but I'm your son. Nothing changes that. I kept reading. I don't have money. I don't have anyone. You're all I have left. It was desperate, pathetic, a last-ditch grab for sympathy. But the worst part, the final line, if you don't help me, I'll have no choice but to remind the world of what kind of woman you really are. A threat, wrapped in fake vulnerability. I held the letter for a moment, let the weight of it settle in my chest. Then I tore it in half, because I finally understood something crystal clear. Ryan wasn't my responsibility. He never had been. Yes, I took him in. Yes, I raised him. Yes, I gave him everything. But that didn't make me his doormat for life. That made me a mother who did her job. What he did with that was on him. I filed the letter away with the rest of the documentation. My lawyer needed to see it, just in case. But me, I poured a glass of wine, walked out to the garden, and let the sun warm my face. Ryan could threaten. He could manipulate. He could lie. But I wasn't afraid anymore, because I had something stronger than fear. I had peace, and I wasn't giving it up for anyone, not even him. But deep down I knew, people like Ryan, they don't stop. And the next time he came for me, I'd be ready. Because I wasn't the same woman who begged for a place in their house. I was the woman who bought her own, the woman who survived. And this time, the only person I was fighting for was me. It's funny how quiet can feel suspicious when your life's been chaos for so long. The next few months were calm, too calm. No letters, no phone calls, no viral videos, no internet hate mobs showing up in my DMs. Part of me wanted to believe it was over, that Ryan had finally accepted I wasn't playing his games anymore. But experience has a way of sharpening your instincts. And mine. They were screaming that the quiet wasn't peace. It was preparation. And sure enough, the next blow came. But this time, it wasn't through the internet, or a letter, or a threat scribbled on a note. It came through the front gate, literally. I was in the sunroom watering my ferns when my phone buzzed. A call from the concierge. Ms. Pierce, there's someone here asking for you. Says it's urgent. I frowned. Who? He didn't give a name, but he's with the police. That got my attention. I grabbed my keys, slipped on my flats, and made my way down to the gate. The moment I saw the two uniformed officers standing there, my stomach dropped. Next to them, a man I hadn't seen in over 20 years. Richard, my ex-husband, looking older, tired, more worn down than I remembered. "What's going on?" I asked, approaching cautiously. The officers exchanged a glance. "Ma'am, your ex-husband contacted us. He flew down from Vancouver this morning. Says your son's missing." My heart stopped. "Missing!" I repeated, disbelief curling in my chest. Richard nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. "It's bad, Maggie. He's been gone for 2 weeks. No calls, no texts, nothing." For a moment, I didn't know how to react. Panic, guilt, sadness. But what came out was suspicion. "You came all this way just to tell me that you think I know where he is." Richard exhaled. "Look, I know what happened between you two. I know things were ugly, but Ryan, he's spiraling. He's broke, homeless, angry. I thought, maybe he came here, maybe he reached out to you." I shook my head. I haven't heard a word. One of the officers spoke up. "We're just following up on the missing person report, standard procedure." I crossed my arms. "And what?" "You think I'm hiding him in my guest room." The officer's face stayed neutral. "We're not accusing you of anything, ma'am. We just have to ask." I sighed, rubbing my temple. The headache creeping in was relentless. Richard watched me for a moment, his eyes softening. "Look, I know you're angry. You have every right, but he's still your son." I met his gaze unflinching. "No, he was my son. The man you raised with me. He died the moment he decided to betray me." Richard flinched, but I didn't care. The officers wrapped up their questions and left, offering polite apologies for the disruption. Richard stayed behind. For a long moment, we just stood there, two people bound by old scars and even older regrets. Finally, he spoke. "You know, I walked away because I couldn't do it. Couldn't raise someone else's kid. I was a coward." I said nothing. He continued, voice quieter. "But you stayed. You fought. You gave him everything." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. And look how that turned out. Richard shoved his hands in his pockets, eyes downcast. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, but if you hear anything, let me know. Please." I gave a small nod, more for my own closure than his. And then he left. I thought that was the end of it. But life, it doesn't let you off that easy. 2 days later, the package arrived. No sender, no return address. Inside, a USB drive. No note, no explanation. Just a tiny, ominous flash drive sitting there, daring me to look. I plugged it into my laptop. What played sent ice straight through my veins. It was Ryan, gaunt, unshaven, his eyes sunken, his voice hollow. The video was shaky, filmed in what looked like a dingy motel room. The walls stained, the curtains drawn. "Mom," he rasped, "if you're watching this, then I'm probably gone." My breath hitched. "I'm not saying this to scare you," he continued, "but I've lost everything. The money, the house, my marriage, my reputation." His eyes glistened, whether from tears or exhaustion, I couldn't tell. "I blamed you for everything," he whispered. "But the truth is, I destroyed my own life." He paused, swallowing hard. "I've been thinking about ending it." My whole body locked up. "I'm not trying to guilt you," he added quickly, "but I needed to say this. You were the only person who ever gave a damn, and I threw it away." The video cut off abruptly. No ending, no goodbye, just darkness. For a long time, I sat there, frozen. All the anger, the betrayal, the lawsuits, the lies. And yet, my heart cracked all over again. Because no matter how twisted he'd become, somewhere in there was still the broken little boy I held in my arms all those years ago. I didn't know what to do. Call the police, hunt him down, pretend it wasn't my problem anymore. The truth, I didn't have an answer. All I knew was the storm wasn't over. And this time, I didn't know if either of us would survive it. That night, I didn't sleep. The words from Ryan's video looped through my mind over and over like a broken record I couldn't shut off. "If you're watching this, I'm probably gone." I sat there staring at the dark screen of my laptop, feeling numb. I thought about calling the police. about reporting the video, about doing something. But every time I reached for my phone, my hand stopped halfway because underneath the fear was exhaustion. 30 years of sacrifice, of holding him up, of pouring every ounce of love I had into a child who at every turn found a new way to break me. And now, this. I couldn't decide if it was a final manipulation or a genuine cry for help. All I knew was that I was drowning in it. By sunrise, I still hadn't made a decision. But life has a funny way of forcing your hand. At exactly 8:30 a.m., my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I let it ring twice before I answered, my voice hoarse from hours of silence. Hello. A pause, then a woman's voice. Soft, careful, strained with concern. Is this Margaret Pierce? Yes. Who's this? The woman hesitated, then continued. My name's Detective Sarah Klein. I'm calling from the Vancouver Police Department. My heart clenched. We found your son. I gripped the edge of the countertop, my knees threatening to give out. Is he... I couldn't finish the sentence. He's alive, she said quickly, but it's complicated. I sat down, the tension draining from my body, replaced by a new tangled knot of confusion. Where is he? She exhaled. At St. Matthew's Hospital. He was admitted 2 nights ago. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, mental health crisis. The motel staff found him. I squeezed my eyes shut. A part of me wanted to scream at the ceiling, to throw things, to cry. But all that came out was a quiet, bitter laugh. Of course. Even now. Even at rock bottom. He couldn't just pick himself up. He had to drag me into it. The detective cleared her throat. I'm only calling because he listed you as next of kin. Legally, you have the right to be involved. Or not. Entirely your choice. My mouth felt dry as I spoke. Is he conscious? Barely, she admitted, but he asked for you. The words hit like a punch to the chest. Asked for me. I wanted to believe it meant something, but experience taught me better. Still, I couldn't ignore it. I'll be on the next flight, I whispered. And just like that, I was back in the cycle. A few hours later, I was standing at the airport, ticket in hand, wondering how the hell I got here again. On the plane, I barely noticed the hours pass. My mind was racing. Images of Ryan as a baby, the hospital visits, the tiny, frail body hooked up to machines, the nights I stayed up holding him, praying he'd survive. And now, here we were, full circle. When I arrived at the hospital, the receptionist guided me through sterile halls, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Finally, we stopped outside room 214. The detective was waiting. Take your time, she said softly, but be prepared. Prepared. I wasn't sure anyone could be prepared for this. I stepped inside. The room smelled like antiseptic. The blinds were drawn. Machines beeped quietly. And there he was, Ryan. Thin, pale, eyes sunken deep into his face. His arms littered with IV lines and medical tape. I barely recognized him. But those eyes, those same hazel eyes I used to see peeking out from under the covers at night, they were still his. He looked at me, his face crumbling, and for a moment, he wasn't the manipulator, the liar, the man who tried to destroy me. He was just my broken little boy again. Mom, his voice cracked. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He reached for me weakly, his hand trembling. And despite everything, I stepped closer, sat beside him, held his hand. We sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he whispered, I'm sorry. 2 words, too little, too late, but also everything. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes. I didn't forgive him, not entirely. But in that moment, I realized forgiveness wasn't the point. Understanding was. I squeezed his hand gently, and for the first time in a long, long time, we sat there. Mother, son, 2 shattered people, trying for once to pick up the pieces. I didn't know where we'd go from here, but I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't the end. It was something else. Maybe not hope, but maybe the fragile beginning of it. Hospitals, they have this eerie way of slowing down time. The beeping machines, the sterile air, the faint hum of voices echoing down the hall. I sat there beside Ryan's hospital bed listening to his shallow breaths, my fingers still loosely wrapped around his frail hand. His skin was cold, clammy, like all the life had been drained from him. And in some ways, maybe it had. After everything, the lies, the lawsuits, the internet circus, seeing him like this, reduced to bones and bruises, it twisted something in me I wasn't ready for. Pity maybe, guilt possibly, but mostly exhaustion. I didn't want to fight anymore, didn't want to hate him, or love him, or explain myself to him. I just wanted peace. The doctor entered quietly, clipboard in hand, offering a sympathetic smile. He's stable. For now, she explained, but his mental health. That's another story. He needs treatment, counseling, possibly inpatient care. I nodded absently, barely processing the words. She hesitated, then asked, "Are you his only family?" The question hit like a rock to the ribs. Technically, no, but practically, yes. Brittany had left. His so-called friends disappeared when the money ran dry. His biological parents never wanted him in the first place, which left me. Always me. I exhaled, rubbing my temple. Yeah, I'm all he's got. The doctor patted my shoulder, her voice soft. Take your time. We'll support whatever decision you make. Decision. That word sat heavy in my chest as I left his room and stepped into the hall. What decision was there to make? Walk away? Again, cut him off for good? Or do what I've always done? Pick up the pieces of his mess? I leaned against the cold tiled wall, closing my eyes, letting the weight of it all sink in. For so long, I thought cutting him off was the answer. Protecting myself, finally choosing my peace over his chaos. But standing there, I realized this wasn't black and white. It never had been. He was my son, adopted or not. A liar, a manipulator, a walking disaster. But also the scared little boy I found abandoned all those years ago. I couldn't rewrite the past, couldn't erase the pain. But maybe, just maybe, I could decide how the next chapter went. By the time I returned to his room, he was asleep. I sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall, my mind spiraling through a lifetime of memories. The first time he called me Mom, the hospital nights, the sacrifices, the betrayal, the heartbreak. It was all there, intertwined, messy, human. I didn't know if I could ever love him the same way again. But I knew this much. I wouldn't abandon him. Not completely. The next morning, I met with the hospital social worker, arranged for his transfer to a long-term care facility, somewhere safe, somewhere structured, somewhere far enough away that I could breathe but close enough to keep an eye on him. Ryan wasn't happy about it. When they told him the plan, he glared at me, resentment flickering in his eyes. "You're locking me up," he snapped, his voice still weak but sharper now. "No," I said calmly, "I'm keeping you alive." His jaw tightened. "I don't need your help." I leaned in, my voice steady. "You don't want my help, but you need it. And whether you like it or not, I'm still your mother." He scoffed, turning his face to the wall. I didn't argue. Didn't fight. Didn't try to convince him. Because this time, I wasn't chasing approval. I was making decisions for me and for the fragile part of him that still clung to survival. The weeks that followed were quiet. I returned home to my villa, tended my garden, played piano, let the sunlight spill through my windows and onto the hardwood floors. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for choosing peace. I checked in with the facility occasionally. He was adjusting, slowly, begrudgingly. The doctors said it would take time, maybe years, maybe forever. But that was his battle now. Mine was finally my own. One morning, as I sipped coffee on my patio, my phone buzzed. A text. "Ryan, I still don't forgive you, but thanks for not letting me die." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then with steady hands, I typed back, I don't need your forgiveness. I need you to survive. That's enough." I hit send. And that was the first honest exchange we'd had in years. It wasn't love. It wasn't hate. It wasn't clean or pretty, but it was progress. And for now, that was enough. Progress is such a funny word. It sounds hopeful, positive, like there's a straight line between broken and healed. But if life has taught me anything, it's that progress is messy. It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's good days tangled with unbearable ones. And it's learning that sometimes peace isn't the absence of pain. It's just finally learning how to live with it. The months after Ryan's text were quiet mostly. I didn't see him, didn't hear from him again for a while. But every few weeks, the facility would call with updates. The usual therapy sessions, medication adjustments, small signs of improvement, or setbacks. And me, I finally focused on living. Truly living. The villa became my sanctuary. The garden flourished roses, lavender wisteria creeping along the trellises. I took up painting again, hosted book clubs with women who didn't care about my past or my bank account. Just good coffee and better conversation. I learned how to be myself, not Ryan's mom, not the housekeeper turned millionaire, just Margaret. It wasn't always easy. There were still whispers from old acquaintances, looks at the grocery store, the occasional stranger recognizing me from the viral mess that was my life. But I stopped letting it chip away at me. I'd earned my place here, and no one was taking that from me. Until one evening, the doorbell rang. It was late. Too late for deliveries. Too late for visitors. I approached the door cautiously, heart tight in my chest. Through the peephole, I saw him. Ryan. Thinner, still pale, but different. There was no smugness this time. No arrogance. No rage simmering beneath the surface. Just uncertainty. And maybe the tiniest flicker of humility. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. We stood there for a moment, the cool evening breeze brushing past us, carrying the faint scent of wisteria from the garden. He shifted awkwardly, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets. "I didn't come to cause trouble," he said softly. "I promise." I raised an eyebrow, arms crossed. "Then why are you here?" His eyes flicked to the ground. "I got discharged. Been doing better. My doctor thought maybe I should face things, close some doors." I stayed quiet, waiting. He met my gaze, swallowing hard. "I know I ruined everything, and I'm not asking you to forget that, or to pretend like it didn't happen." Another pause. "But I owe you the truth." That caught me off guard. I tilted my head, curious despite myself. "What truth?" Ryan exhaled shakily. "It wasn't just the money, or the house, or the inheritance. It was me." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He rubbed the back of his neck, his eyes clouding with regret. I hated myself for being me, for being adopted, for being abandoned. I hated that I wasn't enough for my birth parents, that I wasn't enough for Dad, that even with everything you gave me, I still felt worthless. I stayed quiet. The old me would have tried to comfort him, fill the silence with reassurances, but the woman standing there now, she let him sit in his discomfort. Because the truth was, it wasn't my job to patch his broken pieces anymore. After a moment, Ryan continued, "I blamed you because it was easier than facing myself. I twisted everything. I hurt you, lied about you, tried to destroy you." His voice cracked, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And I can't undo that, but I can say, I'm sorry." The words hung in the air between us, real, raw, and for the first time, sincere. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders relaxing just a fraction. I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't know if forgiveness was even possible, but I did know this was the first time he'd shown me the man I'd hoped he'd become. Not perfect, not fixed, but honest. I opened the door a little wider, nodding toward the porch swing. I said quietly, "We're not going inside yet, but we can talk." He blinked, startled, then nodded. We sat in silence for a while, the night settling around us like a heavy blanket. No more shouting, no more manipulation. Just two flawed, scarred people. Finally, trying to face the mess together. It wasn't a clean slate, but maybe it was the start of one. We talked for hours. No screaming, no accusations, no lawyers breathing down our necks. Just words, some bitter, some broken, some surprisingly gentle. For the first time, Ryan didn't speak like a victim or a manipulator or a man with a hidden agenda. He spoke like a son fumbling to be human again. I listened as he unraveled pieces of his past I never knew. The bullying in school, The constant whispers of, "You're not really their kid." The quiet resentment that built with every sideways glance, every smug smirk from people who knew the truth about his adoption. I hated feeling different, he admitted, staring at the floorboards beneath his feet. I hated that. No matter how much you gave me, I still wasn't enough. Not for myself, not for the world. I stayed quiet, fingers tracing the rim of my coffee mug. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he was enough, that every sacrifice I made wasn't wasted. But the truth, I couldn't force him to believe that. I couldn't fix the cracks in his foundation. That was his burden to carry. What I could do was be honest. You never had to be enough for the world, I said softly. You just had to be decent, kind, honest. I paused, my eyes steady on his. That's where you failed me. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't argue. And that was progress. We sat in silence again, the moon hanging low in the sky, casting silver light across the garden. After a while, he finally asked, "Do you think we'll ever be okay?" I thought about that. About 30 years of sacrifices. The lies, the lawsuits, the public humiliation, the betrayal. I thought about the nights I cried myself to sleep. The months I questioned every decision. The years I spent thinking, maybe I wasn't enough. And then I looked at him. Gaunt, bruised, but finally stripped of the arrogance and entitlement. Finally, just Ryan. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe not. He nodded slowly, accepting that answer. And it felt oddly freeing, because for the first time, neither of us was pretending. No false promises, no fake apologies, no pressure to wrap our mess into a neat, happy ending. We were two people standing on the wreckage of what used to be a family, trying to figure out if we could rebuild or just walk away. And honestly, either option felt okay. Eventually, he stood to leave. "I should go," he mumbled, awkward, unsure. I followed him to the gate, watching as he lingered, eyes darting nervously. Finally, he spoke. "Thanks, for not turning me away." I smiled faintly. I almost did. He chuckled softly, shoving his hands in his pockets. Figures. A beat passed. And then he turned and walked away. I watched him disappear down the quiet street, the sound of his footsteps fading into the night. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear, or anger, or heartbreak. I just felt relief. Because whether or not we ever fix this, I was finally free of the weight of it. Free to live for myself, for the garden, the music, the late-night coffee, and the sunrise walks. For the woman I fought so damn hard to become. Ryan's story, that was his to finish. Mine wasn't over yet. And this time, it belonged to me. It's strange, isn't it? How quiet can sound so loud once the noise is finally gone. The weeks after Ryan's visit slipped by like a gentle tide. No drama, no scandals, no police at my door, just stillness. I'd wake up in the morning to birdsong drifting through the open windows, brew a pot of dark roast coffee, tend to my roses, play a little piano when the sun spilled just right across the hardwood. For the first time, it felt like my life wasn't a battlefield. It was mine, truly mine. I still got the occasional update from the care facility where Ryan had been. He wasn't living there anymore. He'd found a small shared apartment nearby, took a part-time job at a bookstore of all places. It made me smile, bitterly at first, because the same man who tried to paint himself as my victim, my parasite, was finally learning to stand on his own feet. I didn't reach out. He didn't either. And that space, that quiet space between us, was the healthiest thing we'd ever given each other. I kept living. Sold the villas, invested the money, took a cooking class with Monica, who had become surprisingly a dear friend. I even started painting again badly, but with joy. And for once, no one hovered waiting for me to fail. No one whispered behind my back about my past. No one looked at me and saw only my mistakes or my sacrifices. They saw me. Margaret Pierce, the woman who walked through hell and bought herself a better address on the other side. One crisp autumn morning, as I sat by the lake sketchbook in hand, my phone buzzed with a message. It was Ryan. Just 2 words. Thank you. That was it. No demands. No manipulation. No apology tour. Just acknowledgement. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. For a second, I almost responded. But I didn't. Not out of anger. Not out of bitterness. But because I didn't need to. I owed him nothing. Not my money. Not my peace. Not even my forgiveness. I put the phone down, tucked my sketchbook under my arm, and turned toward the winding path back to my villa. The breeze carried the soft scent of roses and damp earth. The sun peeked through the trees, casting dappled light along the gravel. For the first time in over 30 years, I wasn't someone's mother, or housekeeper, or villain, or hero. I was just me, Margaret, survivor. And I was finally free. No more waiting for the next disaster. No more drowning in other people's expectations. Just life. Quiet, beautiful, messy, mine. And if Ryan ever found his way, truly found it, maybe one day we'd talk again. But that chapter, it wasn't written yet. And for the first time, I was perfectly okay with that. Because I had my own story to live now. The story that started the day I stopped begging for love and started choosing myself. And that was the best ending I never expected.